Hello everyone, I'm Paleo Parks and I'm back with another episode of Primeval Sanctuary. In this episode, we're going to be building this enclosure, enclosures surrounded by an aviary. Well, really, it's an aviary surrounded by enclosures. But in this episode, we're only going to be working on one enclosure, and that is going to be a Dryosaurus enclosure. Last episode, if you missed it, I worked on two enclosures, two of which were herbivore enclosures, and those kinda surrounded the outskirts of the visitor center. Now, as you can see, I'm working on the aviary. I'm placing the path outside of the aviary, but the aviary, unfortunately, wasn't, perfectly aligned with the path, so I had to delete the aviary and place it again. Now I'm working on another layer of path, just so I can get some nice path flare in order for some cool path design. And in between those gaps in the path, I will be placing some, I think it was main thoroughfare, or maybe it's the JP thoroughfare, the classic wide path, and soon enough I will be connecting this circular path surrounding the aviary to the main part of the park. And there's this tiny gap right there, which I filled very quickly. Unfortunately, I have to spoil this for you, but there is going to be absolutely nothing inside of the aviary. I couldn't be bothered to place a hatchery, so I just decided, hey, whatever, it's just going to be this empty thing. And now I'm working once again on the path that connects the main park to the aviary section, and just so that it doesn't feel too, open, I'm placing a bunch of alpine trees, a bunch of redwood trees bordering the path, just so that it doesn't feel so wide open and so insecure, for the lack of the better word. Because we don't want the guests being exposed to much of the elements, so I just built this massive shelter belt of trees, protecting them from wind and all that stuff. And another added bonus is some nice oxygen, or carbon dioxide. I forgot what trees make, but whatever. On the other side too, I'm going to be doing the same with alpine trees. Normally you see me do this with tropical trees, but I decided to switch it up for today. I'm going to be using some redwood stuff. For this side of the path, I did struggle with the trees a bit, mainly because I didn't know how to balance the small trees with the bigger trees. But as I went on, you can see I slowly but surely figured it out. You could see me kind of stressing out about what trees to place, mainly because I didn't know what trees to place, obviously, but whatever. I'm just yapping about random stuff right now. But yeah, now I'm placing some of the tropical bushy trees, as it states in the decoration name, when those don't look like trees at all. Those are more like small, small vegetables. I always imagine those to be carrots. And now I'm just in first person mode, walking down the path just to see if it's, it fits. Now I'm placing some water right outside of the trees, because these trees are going to need some, source of water. And yeah, that's pretty much it for that massive shelter belt on both sides of the path. Unfortunately, the path itself won't have any decorations, but I feel like it can go without the decorations, mainly because the trees do such a good job at decorating. And now time for the Dryosaur enclosure. One side of the enclosure is going to be bordered by rocks. The other side is going to be bordered by the massive shelter belt of trees. And right on top of that higher elevated path is going to be some muscle ball pieces, and on the bottom aviary section of the path are going to be these concrete barriers, which were kind of a pain to place, mainly because of the massive shadow of the aviary that obstructed my view slightly. So I tried to, change some settings. I tried to find a setting that would disable the shadows, but apparently there's no such setting as that. I know, looking back, I could have probably went into the sandbox settings and changed the time of day so that the sun would cast the aviary shadow on another place, but I decided I was too lazy for that, and I just went on placing the concrete barriers until it would reach the rocks right on this side. And now I believe I'm gonna place some invisible fencing right next to those trees, just so that the Dryosaurus don't walk through those trees, because I'm sure there's probably going to be some gaps in between those trees that the Dryosaurs can clip through. Well, the same goes for the rocks, but I'm more, confident with the rocks not being able to. I'm more comfortable with the rocks securing the Dryosaurs in an enclosure than I am with trees. And, that's kind of how my brain works. I'll be honest, I took some inspiration from this enclosure. What's the name of that park? Like, Unity Park. That was a good park. I took, for this video, the main inspiration was that aviary build in the middle of some water in Unity Park. That one park where a bunch of dino tubers, whatever. It's inspired by that, but it's not very clear that it's inspired by it. So I'm just going to establish it right now. And now I just missed everything that I did inside of the enclosure because I was yapping about my inspirations. And yeah, those trees that I just placed, they kind of obstructed the view of my idea for what the thumbnail would be, so I deleted them off screen so that I could get a better shot for the thumbnail. And as you can see, I'm just placing some trees in the middle of the water. I have no idea if redwoods grow inside of the water. They could probably grow on the water's edge, but I decided, hey, whatever, they're just gonna grow in the middle of the water. And yeah, okay, what now? You saw me place some rocks earlier, and rocks are just a really good way to elevate the realism of an enclosure. Well, really, everyone knows that. I don't know why I'm saying it, but in the middle of the water features, you could see some rock texturing going on, because using the rock texture paints inside of the water really gives the effect of deep water, which is something I'm really excited for in Jurassic World Evolution 3. And now I'm building another shelter belt outside of the aviary, surrounded by massive trees, because there's no animals inside of the aviary, I had to decorate it somehow. And yeah, I honestly don't know what I did here, but it's cool, I guess. I don't know. But now this aviary kind of reminds me of a cult, just a massive cult of trees worshipping this empty aviary. The lower section of tree, there are some trees are lower than the others, just so we can get a peek of the aviary's water, even though there's not. We can get a peek inside the aviary, and even though there's nothing interesting inside of the aviary. I have no idea what's wrong with my grammar today, but whatever. Also, I did give the aviary a broken effect, just so that I could give a reason for why there's no pterosaurs in there. They escaped. The pterosaurs escaped. That's why there's nothing in there. That's why the aviary is broken. It's kind of hard to explain, but whatever. Okay. I don't know what's wrong with my English today, so please bear with me. Okay, whatever. I'm not gonna yap about my grammar. I'm going to yap about what I'm building, because I don't want my retention to go down. Okay, so now, just like I said earlier, I said I would be placing some multi-wall pieces as well as some lights on this higher section of path. And to be honest, I always love using multi-wall pieces as a way to look inside of enclosures. I'm not a big fan of using fences to, show the borders of enclosures anymore. I feel like using multi-wall pieces are a much more creative and a much more fun way to, show the inside of the enclosure. Well, really, I'm okay with using fencing, right? I use heavy fencing for a lot of my builds. What I meant to say was I'm not a big fan of using viewing galleries for my builds anymore. I like using either concrete barriers or rocks or also wall pieces as a way to look inside of the enclosure instead of a viewing gallery. And now I'm in the hatchery making some Dryosaurs. I forgot what skin I used, but you don't really need to know anyway, because the skin I used sucked. And it was just this weird, I don't know how to describe it, but none of you will want to use it because it was weird. It was not colorful at all. It didn't contrast against anything. It didn't look good inside of the enclosure. But still, I don't really look into the species viewer when I hatch dinosaurs, because that just takes way too much time, and I'm all about efficiency, even though efficiency is sometimes what leads to my downfall. Okay, I don't know what to talk about anymore, because this path was something I deleted later on, because I thought that this was a good idea to do it in the next episode. And speaking of the next episode, last episode I said that this episode would be an episode that would feature a different narration style, but as you can see, I am doing a voiceover over my speed build. So, my plans didn't really work out, but still, it doesn't matter. Now we have the cute little Dryosaurs everywhere, and now I'm just writing done in sand because I am done. See ya. Like and subscribe, please. Bye bye. Watch my next video.